You and I were talking a little while ago, now that we've got the framework out there, the MOVE framework, and a couple of different things. First of all, we got some feedback on our last session. So people were wanting to know a little bit more about us, a little bit more about our backgrounds and how that led to us coming up with this book in the first place and the methodology in general. MOVE obviously is an acronym. It stands for Motive, Opportunity, Value, and Engagement, which are the two kind of the four pillars upon which the methodology, the framework is based.
Math is not your first subject.
Clearly not. You think in business school, I would have figured that one out, but clearly, finance was not my strongest class in grad school. So how about we take a moment? Let's kind of share with people a little bit about who we are and a little bit about our journey. We kind of dropped some hints about it. We really didn't put it in context last time. And let's talk a little bit about what road we've walked. We walked parts of those roads together. We obviously established that last time, but since I started the conversation off here, let's start with you. Who is Matt Long? What has Matt Long done, and why? And what out of that actually led to Matt being interested in writing that book?
Sure. Well, we're trying to limit this podcast to 20 minutes, right? So good luck.
Yeah.
Well, let's just start with my journey. I mean, I've been in tech since the 80s when, they dropped in a bunch of TRS 1000s, into our computer lab at high school. And I took a basic programming course just on a whim and really fell in love. This is in the early 80s. And then PCs were coming about. So I got into technology early. And I was doing consulting, a lot of training for computers. And this is back when PCs were just coming out, WordPerfect and Lotus 1-2-3 and all these things were new. And businesses are trying to use them. So I was doing training for that, which I really liked. I really liked the idea of taking technology and then practically applying it and help people understand how to use it to their benefit. Right? So that's always been kind of core to kind of my interest with technology. I did get a computer science degree, and then I also got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in sculpture and painting. So I have a lot of different interests there, but I think they've served me well. Especially in my sales career, because it is a very creative endeavor, especially when you're talking enterprises, because you're dealing with politics, you're dealing a lot just with personalities, you're dealing with structures and things that are efficient and non-efficient and broken, right? So you have to be very creative about what your approach is as you're doing this thing. There's not one size fits all. There's not one solution that works for everyone.
Right.
And everything I've sold has also been things that are not just a turnkey solution, right? A lot of times there's been evangelizing in terms of it. When we started, it was, collaborative knowledge management. Hey, it was like, okay, well, what is that? How does it apply?
Does that mean,
what does that mean? It's like everyone agrees, yes, we should be using knowledge better, but what does it actually mean, right? And so we had to come up with very tangible ways to show how this can benefit an organization, whether if you're doing project delivery, making sure that your projects are delivered consistently and you share resources and idea and information across all the different users, et cetera. So going into it was a very creative endeavor. And then learning the sales side was something that I kind of grew into, but I didn't start there, certainly. Right. I did notice a lot of my MOs and things at the very beginning were much more training oriented, right? Now we're going to show you how to do this. And now this is this. Isn't this easy? Isn't this wonderful? Right. And there's something nice about that, but it took me a while to find out that that's not really compelling when you're trying to sell something. Right. I'm not here to train them how to use a system. I'm here to show them what the value of the system is to them and how it's going to make their job easier. Right.
Yeah, foreshadowing people, by the way, foreshadowing to other points you'll be making in the presentation.
That's right. But that was my own journey, right? And I think that's a journey a lot of people take. Now, people come in from different backgrounds, right? Yeah. A lot of people now, as we were talking before, are coming in straight from tech. They have computer science degrees, or they have programmers, or they've done stuff like that. And those skills, of course, are necessary for a sales engineer, depending upon what your role, the technology and solution you're selling. But most of the people back in the day when we started were actually had, law degrees, fine art degrees, English majors, et cetera, because it's really about storytelling. So as long as you have an affinity towards tech, you didn't necessarily have to have all the hardcore programming skills, What you did need to have was the ability to ask questions, tell stories, relate to people, understand what they were trying to do so that you can then craft a solution that met that. So that's been my journey over these years. And I think it's only until, the latter part of my career that I really got good at sales, right? And it's because you're learning constantly. You work with good salespeople, you work with not so good salespeople, good sales leaders, not so good sales leaders. And from each one of those, you kind of learn. But I think both of us are, come from a background where we're good at perceiving patterns and things very quickly and then
Definitely.
adopting and adjusting so we can maximize those things. And that really is how this book has come about. We both have our internal frameworks that we've processed and managed our opportunities and sales campaigns, et cetera. And this is the first time we actually put it down to paper.
Yeah.
And when we started doing that, it just came so quickly. It's like, yes, these are the things we're doing, right? So that's been my journey. I apologize for the kind of a long, elongated version of it, but what about you? I mean, how did you come about through this?
Well, first of all, there were aspects of your journey that you, even after all these years, and by the way, as we mentioned last time, we've known each other for 25 years. And there were still a few elements of your journey I don't think I was fully aware of that you just shared there. So from my own perspective, it was enlightening. So my perspective and my journey, very similar to yours. I started out in IT as a way of making my way through school. That I was using it to finance my own way through school. And so my undergraduate degree was more focused on economics and sociology. So there's a lot of number crunching, a lot of being able to take identifying trends and patterns and things like that. So that was my undergraduate degree. It was focused in East Asian studies out of UCLA. And after that, I left and I went to law school for a couple of years. And in law school, and I kind of migrate to being a law clerk and was working in the litigation and the pre-litigation teams where we were doing a lot of actual trial work, a lot of interviews, a lot of investigative work, a lot of cross analysis and asking questions, which is called discovery in the legal field. And I got very big into how do you ask questions to get to things? How do you uncover? How do you overlap questions to find inconsistencies? That became a real focus point of what my day-to-day life was about. The lawyers aren't really the ones who work cases. It's the legal secretaries and the law clerks who do most of the day-to-day until it's getting prepared to be presented in front of a judge. And that's when all of that needs to be distilled and amalgamated, handed over to the salesperson. So that was a lot of my work there. I ended up in that role, still doing a lot of technical work, building decision support systems, knowledge systems, working on cutting edge technology at that time for being able to facilitate that kind of work. And ultimately caused me to switch over to doing an MBA. And I did a dual MBA, but the main focus of the one that's most relevant to what we're talking about now, though part of it was marketing, which was good for like understanding concepts and understanding markets. What do people want? What do people need? What do they like? But it was also dealing with computer science. And so I was dealing a lot with how does technology apply and how is it relevant to the questions people are asking within a business context.
Why did you get out of law and then get into consulting? I mean, what was the impetus for that?
Well, I was already consulting when I was in law. I was doing a lot of freelance work when I was doing that. But it ultimately came down to, in a large part, finances. Law school is not cheap. Neither is business schools. I was trading one set of bills for another. But it was prohibitively expensive to get to where it is I wanted to go in terms of completing that degree. So I did switch over because I also started finding that I was getting far more activity. There was a much stronger demand on the technology side of my skill sets than there was on the legal skills. And I was in high demand as a law clerk, but the technology side did draw me over. And I was getting more and more people asking there. That's why I went to Deloitte. They brought me in for those skills of being able to do deep dive analysis into understanding, here are your business challenges, and then articulating those into a quantitative state. And then analyzing technology, how do we attack those? Where are the gaps and how do we bring in that solution to fix these? And that became the focus of mine. Now, we both also have fine arts in our background because I originally went to school on a drama scholarship. It's like,
Uh,
not that I'm like all over the map, but the communication skills and the empathy that you're taught as an actor was very helpful
mhm.
in establishing the ability to start uncovering what the needs were, whether I was understanding the needs from a legal perspective when I was doing law, or interviewing people on the business side to understand, how do I get you to tell me what I need to know so I can help you?
Hmm.
And
Well, I
that's
will say that, having the skull with you when you're doing the soliloquies during the demos is very
a
dramatic,
nice
very
touch.
helpful.
I did leave the ruffle. I started leaving the ruffle behind because that was a bit gauche. Yeah. But
Well, it's
you took me out of Deloitte. I mean, I was in Deloitte. I was working very, very heavily into e-commerce and stuff like that. And I was a little unfulfilled
mhm,
because very often I was getting pulled into assignments where I didn't get to do that work. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it was all about helping people, finding what was broken and then helping them. And that's the way you pitched being a pre-sales person. I don't
mhm,
know if you remember our interview. I remember parts of it extremely vividly. It was all about taking someone through the journey of understanding where they were vulnerable, even if
mhm.
they didn't understand that, and being able to explain how the solution could fill in the gaps and shore them up. And I was like, that's what I enjoyed most about what I had been doing in consulting. When I was getting pulled into stuff that wasn't that, and I was not satisfied at all. Spin the clock forward. It's 25 years later. I've worked for you. You've worked for me. We've worked with a lot of the same people, but
Mhm.
that theme has been consistent, whether I was leading teams, whether you were leading teams, and irrespective of the solution that we were selling, it's always been for the last 24 years, tell me what's broken. Tell me what you're trying to do, and let me tell you how I help you.
Yeah, I think that for me, the way that I've been able to be an SE and in sales for so long is because I like that. It's like unpacking a puzzle, right? Trying to figure out
Absolutely.
the piece and how does it come apart and then how do you put it back together? And it's always different, right? Because every organization is different. Everybody is different. All the
No.
personnel, the resources, the focus,
Mm.
all these things are completely different. So it's always been a challenge, but I think those are all the things that kept us. I think we're very similar in those areas, and I think
Mm.
that also lends itself to building this book and this framework that we have,
Mm.
because it's basically unpacking all those approaches and interests that we have, and the ways that we attacked these opportunities as a problem to be solved, right? And there's a method that you can go through to do that, to evaluate all these different things. So,
No, totally agree. It all starts with breaking it down from the acronym MOVE,
mhm,
motive, opportunity, value, and engagement. It starts with discovery, right? And asking questions, asking questions, asking questions. But you just can't come in and start interviewing and interrogating the person that you're selling to. You have to establish a degree of trust, understanding, and mutual respect for one another. So it's very tricky. How do
yeah,
you establish that as you're going through, right? If we were going to sit down and put down like levels of difficulty of the different areas of what we're trying to teach people in our MOVE methodology, discovery is, I think, the most challenging
mhm,
for people to adopt intuitively. Very curious people can get there very, very quickly. But
sure,
the problem is all the other ones are predicated on absolutely mastering.
yeah, and I think running a good discovery session. There's two things that help, right? Obviously, experience is one. If you have
Mhm.
experience, then you know the right questions, you know the right nuances to place to elicit things, and people respect you because you have experience doing this, right? But obviously, you have to gain experience over time. The other one is doing your homework,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Just coming in and reading their 10K or whatever other filings they have, or just finding a little bit about the industry and asking some just questions that it's very clear that you've done your homework.
Mm-hmm.
People are much more apt to talk to you, whether you have a lot of experience in that area or not. You're curious and you've done your homework and you're asking real pointed questions that are relevant to them and things they're happy to talk about. So that's the other thing that you can do for
Sure.
sure to make up for the lack of experience.
Yeah, and by virtue of you having done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want the whole thing about homework is not to make you an expert on their company, but you do need to have a familiarity so that when you're talking, this is all about establishing an empathic understanding between you and the person you're selling to. If there's no common ground, that's really hard to do. And doing the homework is so important for being able to give you, I guess, the platform, the vocabulary, so that you can show that you've taken the time or that you get them to a degree where they're like, I can trust giving you an answer, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And as I said before, and you and I were talking earlier on, because so, when we're talking in our actual regular day job capacity, about what the move methodology means. I mean, obviously the book is talking about it from the enterprise sales perspective, and that's both for the AEs, the AMs, account executives, account managers, so the people who are doing the hunters going out there finding new logos, the people who are managing existing customers, and the pre-sales people and the SDRs, the cold callers. It's relevant to all of them. But this concept is also relevant to other areas of a business as well. It's services, the people who are doing the proofs, the people who are extending value over time, even people who are doing product development. There are elements of this that are critical to understanding how you service that person. It's because the discovery leads to the relationship, which leads to the value. And that's what bounds you in tight with these people. And that's what the book is trying to do. We were shocked, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
tell me, you had to been shocked. We started writing it down. How much was there? I mean, you had to have been, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that was part of the challenge too, is how to take all this knowledge that we learned over these years and kind of capture it and put it into a form that could be communicated and passed on to other people easily, right? And I do think that the methodology we came up, the MOVE methodology, is a really good way to kind of think about these different aspects in ways that don't get too convoluted with one
Mm-hmm.
another, but
Mm-hmm.
are still part of a whole organism and approach,
Mm-hmm.
that you're taking. And so I'm really proud of the way that we've broken it out because it can get so daunting because there is so much to consider. They all are tied together and interwoven, right? And try to unpack that thing gets confusing, right? So I'm really anxious to see, the response from people and the feedback that we get. But I think that this is a very structured and a poignant way of kind of covering some of these basics and the next level that you need to know to really become an effective seller.
Yeah, and it's based on the experiences we've had, right? Like I said
Yes. Yeah.
earlier on, I worked for you. You recruited me out of Deloitte, and I came to work for you for a number of years, and then we kind of went off on separate journeys when we came back. I've led pre-sales teams, I've led services teams, and even been very, very much engaged with like sales enablement and empowering sales teams, very large ones in some cases. It's based on what we had learned over time and communicating that to the teams, being able to work with and develop those skill sets inside of whether we're talking about the pre-sales people, the services people, the sales people, and teaching them this discipline of understanding and building empathy and building continual value and building an extended engagement with the customers. And it all starts with your ability to understand their pains, their needs. And I know that gets talked about in a lot of other methodologies, but the way we do it is a little bit different. If you were going to pick one way that our methodology is unique in that perspective, I have a couple of ideas. You tell me, what do you think if you were going to tell somebody, so, okay, you have a methodology, Matt, that's great. What's unique about your methodology? Pick a reason why you think that might be different.
Well, a couple of things. I think first off, just the way that we've broken it down, it's very easy to consume and understand
Mm,
and digest, right? It's not so overwhelming. There is a lot in each one of those different stages,
hmm.
but you don't have to use everything. You could just pull a couple concepts out of it. I think it's going to make you better from the get go,
Definitely.
right? But I think the thing that really stands out to me is the last part of it, which is the engagement,
Mm,
which is, now that you've collected all this great information, you've mapped it to value, how are you actually applying it? What are the things that you are doing to drive this thing forward in this, multi-month, multi-threaded, convoluted sales cycle that keeps everyone focused, keeps everyone on course,
hmm.
because things just veer off all the time, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Um, so it's a way to kind of manage that better. And I don't think
Mm.
that's something that's really taught a whole lot, right?
No, I agree.
And
Yeah.
so that I think is the real differentiating thing, taking all these things that we've built and then applying them in a way. And we're going to have other more in-depth either books or trainings or things around, just doing the demos. But I
Mhm.
think the really exciting one is the proving tech exercises, POCs, POVs, etc. So
Yep. More
um,
foreshadowing, foreshadowing, folks. Watch this space. There'll be more book covers being up on our screens here eventually.
But
Definitely.
but for me, those are the two things. It's
Yeah.
easily to consume and to understand, and also has very tangible applicability to real sales cycles that you can apply immediately.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, I'm a bit biased. We did write it, and we understand why it came through. We did take great pains when we were writing the book to be able to explain it out very systematically, and we tried to build each step along in such a way that we didn't assume what you knew. And even if you do know it, let's make sure we understand what that means the same way. Now, from my perspective, I think, although I absolutely agree with everything you said, and I would say those are definitely key areas of differentiation of what we're talking about in our methodology to other methodologies. I would say one of the other things is simply this, because the discovery part, I'm almost fanatic in the way that I like to approach discovery from the because of just how critical it is. Because everything you do, everything you try and present to the customer, everything you try and explain to them, all your presentations, your business case, all of it is
Hmm.
predicated on how strong you understand their needs. So the discovery is how you do that. And I think the difference about the way that we approach discovery in our methodology, although am by no means an expert in a million different strategies out there, I don't claim to be, but based on what I know and what I'm familiar with to the ones that I've been exposed to, we don't just ask questions of the customer because there seems to be, and again, this is a bit of a generalization of the ones that I've worked with, there is a bit of an assumption the customer has all the answers. The truth of the matter, because you know how chaotic it can get, how things can change over the course of a sales campaign. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they think they do.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Hmm.
and then you start asking more questions and you find out you have to constantly not just ask questions, but push the customer to the boundaries of what they know. And then ask those questions in a way that you can understand if there's inconsistencies and you can find out if there's gaps in their knowledge because they might not know. They might not be aware of where they're at risk. They may not understand where they're operationally not properly established to be able to execute on a solution like yours. In your responsibility as the person asking them to partner with you is to help walk them through that discovery, not just for you so that you can fill out the sheets that you've got with your whatever methodology it is you're using, but you can help them have aha moments about themselves, about what they're trying to achieve, and where they may or may not be ready to actually execute on those things. So as much, I totally agree with what you're saying, but if I were going to put a point of finger to something additional, I'd say the way that we approach discovery and what we want people to do with it and we want the customer to do with it, I think is unique with respect to kind of our approach and what we're trying to emphasize and move.
Yeah, and I think with enterprise tech sales, there are so many different departments and people that are involved. And not everyone's had the experience where they have a great solution, they're driving it through only to get the smackdown from IT at the last minute.
Oh yeah.
Nope. It's like, Ed, like,
It's
you didn't even see it coming, right?
right.
Or, you got security, you got legal, you got compliance. All those people have
Procurement.
to be, addressed, and
Mhm.
their needs and concerns have to be addressed in order to get anything up, right? So, these are the experience things that we experienced over time, where everything looks great, and all of a sudden, last minute, oh, by the way, there's a committee meeting that you have to go through to get approval. It's like, what? And it's like,
Right.
and the person didn't know about that, and then we find out. So we definitely put little tidbits in there about, check this. Do you have these types of things? Is there a
Right.
board meeting coming up? Do you have to get approval from that? Right.
Right.
It goes on and on, but that, I think these are things that we've learned over the years, that as a trusted seller, you're there to help them be successful, right?
Mhm.
And knowing these things ahead of time and things to look out for is just going to make everyone more successful, as well as your champion be successful in the organization.
Wholeheartedly agree. And one of the things I've often tried to explain, usually seasoned sellers have already intrinsically picked up on this, but
Mm-hmm.
some, inexperienced, or sometimes hyper aggressive sellers don't necessarily, either they never really come to terms with it, or they don't give it the proper consideration. Is that in many cases, when someone makes an agreement to bond with you or partner with you and go forward with your solution, they're betting their career.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand that.
Yeah.
And you need to be sensitive to the fact that you need to help them protect themselves by making sure that you've built a very strong business case for them. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into some of the particulars, but, I just couldn't help but think about that as you're bringing up that very important point. So there's all kinds of aspects of these things that we get into in our methodology. And I think that the way that we connect them together, the way that you were explaining it, in terms of by the time you get down to value mapping and engagement, how critical those are, but how they tie together. It's a continuous flow of concept from the first communications and the first questions to the delivery and execution and continual execution of value over the course of the engagement. We'll get into more and more of these things as we go through the different sessions. And I can't wait to bring on some of the guests. We've been kind of talking about some folks we want to invite, folks that are far more interesting than us in some cases.
Yeah, it'll be fun, because I think it'll give us an opportunity to explore, just one of these things in a lot of detail, and it should be really interesting. But really excited that the book is out. It's been well received so far, and we're just really looking forward to kind of teaching everyone more about it. But it's something that's near and dear to our heart. We feel very passionate about it, and hopefully that's something that we can continue to communicate to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that Matt and I would love folks to do is actually bring out some of the questions you guys have, whether you've bought the book and you're reading through it and you have questions about the methodology, please send them over to us. You can contact us through the website itself, or respond to the thread of the podcast that you're following. We'll be looking for them and we're getting ready to respond to those questions. But we definitely want to make this all about helping you guys. How can we help you? And share your stories with us about things that have worked, things that haven't worked. We want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've got a lot of those stories too. Some of them are hilarious in their failures, and some of them are heartwarming in their successes. And we'll probably be sharing a number of those as we go on. I know that we want to try and keep these sessions down so that people aren't like having to go and take their entire lunch hour to listen to our podcast, Matt. So before we go and wrap up, is there anything else you wanted to bring up to the folks before we kind of close down for this week?
No, just if you're interested more about the book, just go to our website, strategicsalesoptimization.com, and you can go preview the book, or I'll just download it, get it off of Amazon, get an e-reader version, or just a digital copy as well. So looking forward to sharing that with you and also hearing your feedback.
Yeah, and right now we're running a special on the pre-order for the e-reader version through Kindle. You can get that for $3.99. It's significantly marked down if you pre-order that before the January 6th release date. There, of course, also is a paperback version and the PDF electronic reader version as well. Those are all available off of our website, as you heard Matt say a moment ago, and the details on how to get to that page should be listed directly below. If you have any questions, come on into the website, go to our contacts page, ask the question. We're happy to talk to you guys, and we want to bring those questions out to the podcast going forward. So Matt, what do you think? Should we wrap up for this week? And
I think that's a wrap.
all right, okay, folks. So now on for the legal jargon at the end of the podcast. Thank you for tuning into Software Sales Simplified, Move to Success. This podcast is produced and is the sole property of Strategic Sales Optimization LLC. Copyright 2024. Reproduction in any part, in whole or in part, is without the express written permission of Strategic Sales LLC is strictly prohibited. All rights reserved. So, ladies and gentlemen, please like and subscribe if that is appropriate on the platform that you are listening to us on, and come back and join us next week. We can't wait to spend a little bit more time with you. And until then, Kevin saying goodbye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.